It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life. From the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators. The famous and not so famous. The controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here is Douglas Coleman.
Howdy-o, hey. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are ya? How are ya? Nice to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. We've got the 3 years in Pakistan, the Erik Audé Story special for you today. And we were lucky enough to get both Erik Audé and producer-director Jamie Lynn Lipman on the show. We've got 2 interviews for you. Just as a little background on the story, 3 years in Pakistan, the Erik Audé Story is a feature-length documentary about an American actor named Erik Audé who was sent to death row in one of the most dangerous prisons in Pakistan for a crime that he did not commit. He was arrested at Islamabad International Airport where they found 3.6 kilograms of opium hidden in the lining of his suitcase that he knew nothing about. He was sent to prison where he was beaten, electrocuted, and water tortured for 3 days, all the while maintaining his innocence, and refused to cop a plea even though it meant less jail time. When Erik was asked the question, what's worth more to you, your pride or your freedom, Erik chose pride. So we've got Erik here, as well as Jamie Lynn Lipman. Jamie Lynn has been a filmmaker for a number of years. She started out as an actor. Her first appearance was in Boogie Nights, opposite Burt Reynolds and Mark Wahlberg. She had a small part in that film. She's also been a guest star on popular TV shows like The Drew Carey Show and has done numerous independent films. After the interviews, we've got a couple more tracks to play by Robert Marino. Thank you to Robert for his generous contribution to our GoFundMe, as well as all the great music he has been sending in for our show. We really enjoy playing his music. It's great stuff. Happy to do it. As I mentioned, we have a GoFundMe. We also have a Patreon page. If you're interested in being a sponsor for the show, check out our Patreon page, as we offer sponsorship packages for as low as $40 a month. And we might even go cheaper than that. If you just want to run for 1 week, we'll do it for $10. How's that? Send us your audio ad. Keep them to 1 minute or less, please. And we will run it for 1 week for $10. Or if you want to do a monthly, we'll do it for $40 a month. We'll run 8 times in the month over all of our online and terrestrial affiliates. Plus, once your month is up, if you choose not to renew, your ad will stay in the show that is archived on our YouTube and Spreaker channels. So your ad would play forever, basically. It remains a fixture in the archives forever. So it's a great deal. Check us out, patreon.com/Douglas Coleman Show, or GoFundMe, search Douglas Coleman Show. Okay, so we will be right back with Erik Audé, then a short commercial break, and then Jamie Lynn Lipman, and then our 2 tracks by Robert Marino. Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Erik Audé. Hi, Erik. How are you?
Morning. How are you doing? I'm happy to be on the show. Thank you for bringing me on.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. I watched the movie, and you have had a hell of a life for the time you've been on this earth. Can I ask how old you are?
38 years young.
38, wow. Okay, so you've done more in 38 years than most people do in their whole life. It seems like.
I don't know. I don't try to compare myself to other people. I just the stuff that's happened to me, I just laugh and shake my head.
Well, yeah, I guess all of it wasn't stuff that you had planned to do, certainly. And it just sort of happened to you, but you've been through a lot. And I want to get into some of that. The first thing that I wanted to ask, now you were born in California. We'll dispense with the whole, backstory there. But how in the world did you get run over by a school bus? Tell us that story.
Oh God. We lived up in a new housing tract up in Palmdale, and our bus stop was about a half mile from our houses. And when you're a kid in third grade, that's a long, long walk when you just want to get home. And we had a substitute bus driver that day, and she was dropping us off way far from our houses. And I was trying to tell her that she's supposed to bring us closer, and she didn't want to do it. Well, I ended up, even as a little kid, I was a jerk and I was a standout. And I got off the bus and I ended up getting yanked and pulled underneath the back rear tires of the bus. Just bad luck. And she should have cleared the bus. She didn't, but I was an idiot kid and I was messing around the side of the bus and I got run over.
So she started to take off before you were clear of the bus, basically.
Yeah, no, I was still on the bus when she took off.
Oh, you were still on the bus. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So
but she was trying to. She wanted to go. She was in a hurry because she had to get to the high school. And it was And then she did a hit and run on me. She ran me over. She thought I was kidding, but I wasn't. And she took off. Just bad luck.
Wow.
Just bad luck.
So how severely were you injured?
My pelvis was shattered like a glass jar. I wasn't supposed to live through the night. I would have over 52 surgeries between 8 years old and 15 years old. I was the first person on earth to have their urethra severed and reconnected. And to this day, I still live with chronic pain.
Wow. That's amazing. But yet, by the time you were, 14 or 15, you were playing football? That's amazing.
I didn't walk for 2 years. I was told I would never walk again, but I guess because I was so young and I was still growing, that's what allowed me to heal. And I was. The doctor said I'd never be normal, and I did cross country. I played football. I set a state record. I was very lucky in the sense that it could have been a lot worse.
You weren't content to just join the chess club after that, huh? You wanted to go.
No. I wanted to be a stuntman my whole life.
Wow.
All I ever wanted to be was a stuntman. It was my lifelong dream.
So when did you actually start being a stuntman?
Well, I started being a stuntman in my backyard. I would ride bikes off the roof of my house just to make the neighborhood kids laugh. I would set myself on fire. I would let people try to hit me with their cars. I would fall. I would run and fall on purpose down the stairs at a crowded place. I did stupid stuff like that when I was a kid for laughs, and it's something that I was good at. I mean, you got to know how to fall, but the truth is, you just got to be able to take pain, and that was something I'd always been good at.
You sound like you would have been perfect on that show, Jackass.
Yeah, that would have been. If I had known those guys, I would have been right in the mix of there. I would have been trying to up everyone. Johnny Knoxville would probably have been like, you know what, this guy.
You can have the show. We're going to change the name. It's your show.
He always does. He always ends up doing the worst stuff. But I mean, I would have loved to have been right there with him. That was right up my alley.
Well, it definitely sounds like it. Okay, so you were doing that, and then you got hooked up with this guy, Razmik, and you were taking packages. You were going overseas, and you were getting packages of leather products. Is that right?
Yes. I was working for his company, which was importing expensive leather goods back into the U.S., claiming it as our own clothing to beat the import tax. It was a free trip. It was $800 spending cash, but I would have done it just for the trip. That was enough for me. And I was a teenager when I started working for him, and I was 21 years old when I found out what it was we were really being used to do. We were all being used as dupes, people that unknowingly smuggle narcotics.
Now, according to the film, you had made a couple of trips to Turkey prior to going to Pakistan. And everything seemed to work out okay. Were you carrying drugs at that point as well?
My common sense says yes.
Yes. Okay.
Will I ever know for sure? No, but most likely I was.
So the customs people never found it. You never knew about it. You thought it was sewn into the suitcase somewhere or something like that.
It was the one. All I know is that the one suitcase that I was arrested with, it was professionally concealed in the walls. So common sense and putting two and two together, the previous trips, probably the same thing.
So when you did the trip to Pakistan, you got busted in Pakistan. How did they find it? How did they know you had it?
Couple theories. Maybe someone ratted. Maybe somebody who was part of it screwed people over and then set me up so that they can get the real drugs through, because apparently 3.6 kg, which is what I was charged with, isn't a lot. So by telling the person they sold me more, having me carry less, they can, I don't know. There's a couple things. Maybe the guard was just good. Hey, maybe the customs guard was like, why is this tall white guy in Pakistan? Because there weren't any other foreigners there. There were no other foreigners at that airport. And, maybe someone ratted me out so that other people could get through and all the attention would be on me. Or maybe that was just a good customs guy and he did a good job. I will never know. So
they arrest you at the airport, right? And then tell us basically what the story went, how it went from there. They took you, did they haul you straight off to jail, or did you have to go to a intermediate jail first and then appear in court, or how did that all work?
Yeah, I went to a customs lockup. Well, the DEA first came and spoke to me. I gave them all the information about my friend, about the people that were making these trips back in America. They didn't believe a word out of my mouth, though. The DEA, they assume that if you have it, then you're guilty. That's all they care about. They want the bigger fish. In their eyes, everyone is guilty. So they were no help. I gave them all the information I had. I went to a customs lockup, which is an intermediary, what's a middle lockup, and the embassy came and met with me, but they couldn't do anything. The next day I was presented in front of a magistrate to decide how many days of physical remand they would give me, and the judge wanted to give me 10, but a woman from the embassy was able to talk him down to 3, and so for the next 3 days I was tortured for information that I didn't have. The thing that on the 3rd day they just simply wanted me to admit the drugs were mine, but I wasn't admitting anything, and so I got tortured for 3 days, and there's nothing you can say or do when you're innocent, because all you can do is prepare for the pain. It's either that or admit to a crime that you didn't commit, and that wasn't an option for me. And then I got to rest that night and taken to jail the next day on the 4th day after being arrested.
Physical remand, that's a real polite way of saying beating a confession out of somebody.
Yeah, that's what they do in Pakistan. They weren't treating me any special. That's just what they do to the people there. I was just another person.
It sounds like they just did that to the Khashoggi guy, that whole story that's going on right now. Except they killed him.
I don't know. The guy who's Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, the journalist, yeah.
Well, people die during physical remand in Pakistan. It's very common. They either get drowned or beat to death. Usually they drown, and they just can't handle it. It's pretty intense. And the judge had wanted 10 days, and it was 3 days, and 3 days was pretty awful. I'm glad I didn't have to do the 10.
Oh, well, I can imagine. That must have been really grueling for you to have to be there when they did the recreation narrative in the film. Was that a little tough to kind of watch all that going on again?
Yeah, it's not fun for me. Telling my story is not fun for me. I don't enjoy it. A lot of people that know me, when the documentary came out, they would tell me they had no idea, and how do I keep it hidden so well? And I just say everyone's got skeletons in their closets. Some are just running around. It's not fun. I mean, what happened to me was awful, and I have night terrors, and I wake up swinging, and I hurt myself in my sleep because I think the guards are coming into my my cell and beating me in the middle of the night again. And it sucks because I've given myself black eyes. I pulled a disc out of my neck. I had gashes on my hands. It looked like someone took hammers to my fingernails, and this is what I've done to myself in my sleep. So it's not fun. It's not fun. It's nothing that I can do about it, though.
What made you decide to go along with this project, Jamie Lynn?
Well, I had done the show Locked Up Abroad, and I didn't want to do the show Locked Up Abroad, but they appealed to my ego. My ego was, I'm an actor, I'm a stuntman, that's what I've always enjoyed. And by season 6, they said, what if we let you play yourself? And they had asked me every season since season 1. So I gave in, and I did season 6, but what they didn't tell me that they were going to do was only pick all the exciting stuff and leave out the rest. And by leaving out the rest, they left a lot of unanswered questions. And unfortunately for me, the show Locked Up Abroad is very popular. It's in every country. It's in every language. And what they did is they turned a 13-hour rushed interview into 48 minutes. And all they did was tell 1 year, 2 months of my story. And I was there three years. And by doing that, they left a lot of unanswered questions. So people started filling in the gaps with their own answers and their own common sense, and none of them were right. So for the last 6 years, I've been getting nonstop death threats and harassing messages on Twitter and Facebook and whatever social media platform. And it's just people want to assume the worst. They want to first say that I'm a liar and that I did know, and also that I got my ass beat every day and that I was raped every day. And they just want to assume the worst, most horrifying things. And, telling the story, the reason I told the story in the first place was so that people would be educated that this stuff really happens. So that if someone were ever offered the same situation, they would be smarter than I was. They would be able to see it for what it really is and walk away. And that's why I told the story, because had I seen something like this back in the day, I would have been like, you know what? It sounds a little too good to be true. I'm good. And I wouldn't have gone. And so that's why I told the story. But I didn't know I was going to get 6 years of death threats and harassing messages from people. And people everyone's 7 foot tall on the internet. Everyone is. And so Jamie Lynn knew this was happening. Jamie Lynn, who directed the documentary 3 Years in Pakistan. And she says, well, why don't we do a documentary that tells your whole story, that tells it from beginning to end, so people can understand you, so they can understand how you were able to adjust to the situation and endure what you did. And I think she did an okay job. You said you watched the documentary?
Yeah, I did. I liked it.
Was there anything that you had questions about that didn't make sense to you?
No, everything made sense. The only questions I had were sort of the follow-up, I guess. I mean, has anybody heard from Razmik anymore? Or did he disappear off the face of the earth? Did you ever get your money back? I know you sued him. The movie said that you sued him and you won the lawsuit, but you never saw a penny from him because he disappeared.
No, I just have a civil suit judgment against him for $20.4 million, and I just renewed it last year. I'll keep having to renew it every 10 years, but I'll never see a penny. He was never punished for what he did to me, and the reason is because he gave up. He wasn't even the top guy. He was a middleman. He gave up information about a lot of big wigs, and because of his information, the DEA and whomever was in charge was happy with who they were able to arrest because of his information. So they will never prosecute him for what he did to me.
So he cut a deal and he walked.
Yes.
But isn't your civil suit still valid? I mean, you can...
My civil suit's still valid, but unfortunately for me, his name, Razmik Manassian, is like a John Smith in the Armenian community. And everyone, I've paid dozens of private investigators to try to find out which properties are his or which assets are his. And they've always attached liens to the wrong people, and it's cost me countless... it's cost me money I don't have. It's just been more of a headache. He's, and the person that had tried the case for me, a month before we even went to trial, she ended up dying from a heart attack. But one of our people in her law firm continued on the case, and we were still able to win. But unfortunately, her law firm disbanded with her death, and no one was interested in putting the funds together to go after Razmik. So I had to put the funds together to go after him, and no one's been able to find out exactly what's his and what's not his. And this is 11 years later, and it's just, I've gone on with my life. I've moved on with my life.
All right, let's talk about that. So then you're playing poker now, or you've been playing poker?
Poker's been a large part of my living. I play poker a couple times a week, and I do pretty good at it.
You play in tournaments? You play professional, like in the casinos? And
Yep. I play tournaments. I play house games. I play cash games. I play wherever there's a deck of cards and a couple people who hate money. I will be there.
Oh, that's great. And it says here that you're also investing in bars.
I invested in a bunch of bars. I've invested in weed startup companies. I've invested in iPhone apps. I've invested in dog toy companies. I've invested in a lot of different things. I've invested in movies and documentaries. I'm always trying to I'm always trying to do a bunch of different things. It's, some things work, some things don't. It's life. But well, I do okay.
Out of all of that you're doing, which do you prefer? You still want it to do the stunt work, or is it poker?
Poker is what pays my bills, but what do I prefer? I prefer stunt work. That's where my passion is. I prefer stunt coordinating and directing the action and being on set and creating and keeping everyone safe and coming up with new ways to sell the action. That's what I've always wanted to do. That was my dream since I was a kid. And when you're a kid, you play cowboys, Indians, cops, and robbers, and the only difference is when you're an adult is you sometimes get paid for it. It's just, that's all it is we're kids again, and we're just getting paid for it.
Yeah, I think that's the allure of acting, is you get to be a child all over again.
It is. It's great. You get to do make-believe, and people get to, it's funny because I've got guys who graduated with me in high school who are lawyers, doctors. One guy is an S7 captain. I think I'm saying that right. In the Navy, he's got 250,000 people under him, and this guy's following me on Facebook and excited about what show I'm going to do next or what I got coming on next. And it's like you're in charge of 250,000 people, and yet you care what I'm doing. It's sort of humbling, I guess.
Well, I think people, it's like you always want what you don't have. And people that work in some sort of regular job have this fantasy of being actors. And I know a lot of actors who want to be musicians, and I know a lot of musicians who want to be actors. Even though they're great at what they do, they just want to do something else.
Everyone wants to do something they're not comfortable doing. Like, I know actors who aren't happy acting. I know actors who've turned down lots of work because they didn't like it. And I'm like, how do you do that, man? I take everything. I've only turned down probably 3 jobs in my entire life, and it was because it was just so ridiculous, or it wasn't worth the risk. And but usually I'll do anything and everything because I just like being part of the business. I like creating and doing stuff that people will see later and enjoy. And I figure when I'm long gone, something I did here will entertain people. And in a certain sense, you don't get forgotten that way. It's just fun.
What are you working on now? You doing any stunt work right now?
I'm at the well, I did this season of Mayans, and they just got picked up for another season. I do all the motorcycle riding for the show, and I also play a small reoccurring character on the show. I've done a few music videos. I might be doing a motorcycle riding on a music video here next week. I'm also up for Magnum PI at the moment. And I'm auditioning, and I'm waiting for the next job, and it'll come. And that's just sort of the way it works. It's either feast or famine. You work or you don't work, but as long as you stick around, things will happen. As long as you don't give up, you will get a hit.
You said Magnum PI. That's the new reboot, right, of the 70s one with Tom Selleck? Yeah. They're doing a lot of reboots now in Hollywood.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's hard to come up with new things, I guess, and new generation, and might enjoy it. They've been doing that forever. What with the movie that just came out, A Star Is Born? I never heard of it before, and I found out it was the 4th reboot.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I thought the one that came out in the 1950s with Judy Garland was great. I hated the one in the 70s.
And that was a reboot.
Yeah, it's amazing. Eric, we got to wrap this up. I got Jamie Lynn coming on in just a couple of minutes. I want to talk to her. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Just let everyone know that they can get it on any platform, on VOD, on iTunes, on Amazon, on anything. All they have to do is type in 3 Years in Pakistan, the Erik Audé Story, and I promise them if they watch it, they'll appreciate their life a lot more. Also, they won't fall for what I fell for. They'll be a lot wiser, and it could save their life one day.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Eric. Thank you again.
All right, you take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T, Epps, E-P-P-S, at talk, T-A-L-K, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
Go listen, download, and subscribe to The Douglas Coleman Show. It's available at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. Also on iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube. The Douglas Coleman Show is an internationally syndicated talk and music show that features fascinating and sometimes famous guests from all aspects of the entertainment industry. The topics can range from light and fluffy to sober and serious. Our focus is on music artists, but we also feature producers, authors, directors, and even promoters. The Douglas Coleman Show. Sometimes chat, sometimes music, always entertaining. Again, it's available today at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. You can also connect with them on Facebook at Douglas Coleman Show 1, follow on Twitter at Douglas Coleman 3, and you can even find them on TuneIn Radio. Again, that's the Douglas Coleman Show at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, and more. Go listen, download, subscribe, and share with your social networks today.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Jamie Lynn Lipman. Hi, Jamie Lynn. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Your film is called 3 Years in Pakistan, the Erik Audé Story. And we just talked to Eric. It was an amazing film. I watched the film 10 days ago or so, and really enjoyed it. I was a little bit surprised, though, because I thought it was like a narrative film, but it only had that bit in the middle. I didn't realize it was a documentary with a narrative. So
yeah. We're actually developing it as a narrative as well, but I wanted to give Eric a chance in documentary format. I wanted the audience to hear it first in his voice, from him in his own words, and giving him a chance. To tell his story.
I think it was better that way, at least for me, because I was expecting something akin to the Midnight Express, and it wasn't like that at all. And I enjoyed actually seeing him and seeing him tell his story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was important to me. He had done an episode of Locked Up Abroad, and with that show, it's a reenactment show with interviews. And, it's only about 45 minutes. And I didn't really feel like the audience got to know him and who he was. So that's why it was also extremely important to me. I've known him since he was 17 years old. I knew him before this happened, when it happened, and after. And it was always a story that was important for me to tell. So I was really thankful that he, allowed me to do this.
Okay, I didn't know you knew. Did you go to school together?
No, 20 years ago, I was an actress, and we were both actors in the 90s and had the same agent. And he was just such a stand-up, such a good guy. And I actually found out about what happened to him when I opened up the LA Times. The article that said actor's fate in Pakistan's hand was actually what I ripped out of the LA Times. And I just, shocked. And that's my friend. And there's no way he could have done this. And cut to, years later when he was out, I was making a documentary about actors. And I interviewed him, and he started sharing these stories with me of what happened to him when he was in prison. And it was so heartbreaking and shocking. And, at the time, I kept thinking this has got to be its own story. It's got to be its own documentary. And this was before documentaries really were what they are today. And then cut to, I was putting out a film. I put out a film in 2017 called When the Bow Breaks. And shortly before that, everyone's saying, what are you going to do next? And I have several things that I'm developing. And I was watching the Jim the James Foley story on HBO, and I was so affected and moved by that film. And I said, that's what I'm going to tell Eric's story. And so I sent him a Facebook message and, met with him and told him why I wanted to do it and why I was the right person to do it. And fortunately, he agreed to let me go on this journey with him. So it's been, quite an experience, and just very thankful that we've been able to put it out and the response that, I think he's such an inspirational human being. And I think it's such a testament to overcoming such extreme adversity. And I find that really inspiring. And that's, what I was hoping the audience would also get from it, which, they have, which has been great.
What I found amazing that he told me was that aside from the ordeal in Pakistan, but when he got home and then he did that show, Locked Up Abroad, he said he was getting all kinds of death threats and people just criticizing him and ridiculing him on social media. And that I could not believe. I mean, somebody who went through that, and then people have the audacity to call him out, saying that he was a liar and he made it all up. I mean, who would do that just for fame? to make up a story like that.
And that was the, I don't discount the show, but that was the problem with it for me, is that you don't get the whole story and you don't get to know Eric. So you see, what happens with the torture in Pakistan, and you see all the, the shocking stuff, but that was it. And so in his interviews in between, I didn't really feel like the audience, got the facts. They got the entire story, because this was 3 years and they only covered about a year and a half of it. And I didn't really think at all that you got to know him. And that's why I wanted him to, put this story out in his own words and get the kind of final say. Give him the time to be able to tell the story properly.
Did you have to convince him to do this? Because I know he told me in the interview that it's difficult for him to recount that time, that it's painful for him.
It didn't really take convincing. I think he knows my intentions and he trusts me. And I think he was open to it because of all the hate that he received after that show, that this would give him a chance to really tell the story and put it out there properly.
Well, he did say something quite accurate. He said everyone is 7 feet tall on social media.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I mean, the stuff you see on social media is just unbelievable. Absolutely. I did want to ask you one thing about you, not about this particular film, but I was curious. How did you get the role in Boogie Nights?
I was actually doing extra work with friends, and I hadn't done it that often. It was in 96, I believe. It came out in 97, but I believe I did that in 96. And some friends that I worked at a restaurant with, we were all struggling actors, and they said, let's go work on this film. And I had seen Hard Eight. I've always been into cinema and studied, filmmakers. And they said, this movie, Boogie Nights, with Mark Wahlberg. And we just, for fun, went and spent the day in, Reseda, dressed in 70s clothes. And it was such a fun day. And then all of a sudden, I think one of the PAs came and lined me and about 10 other people up. And Paul Thomas Anderson pointed at me and said, her. And then the next thing I know, I was, in the booth with Julianne Moore and Burt Reynolds and Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it was a day I'll never forget, the stories and the parallels of them being already accomplished actors and me just, arriving in Hollywood. It was quite a day.
Oh, bad. What was Burt like?
Really funny and really sweet. He told a lot of stories. He called me Bambi. He was telling me, he said he would like to eat breakfast off my face. That was pretty funny. But he was just such a storyteller, just such a nice guy, and really, really inspirational, and just saying how, when he first moved to Hollywood, he lived in a broom closet. And I was literally living in the Hollywood Hills in, not much more than a broom closet. A place where I was babysitting to get free rent. So it was, he was terrific. All of them were.
So are you originally from LA? Yeah.
I grew up in Valencia.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up 20 minutes outside. And when I was in high school, I did theater in high school, and it was more than I started in commercials, but it was more that I studied film since I was, 7 years old. I lived inside the movie theater because of my dad, and he didn't take us to go see what was appropriate. He took us to see what he was seeing. And I just fell in love with being inside that place. And it's the only place I wanted to be, to the point that I would cut class literally every day in high school, when I was driving. And go to the movies. And, my brother introduced me to foreign films, and I would read books on filmmakers. I just loved everything about cinema and knew that I would fall into that. But being that I had an acting past and I was doing it in high school, it was very much a natural transition of like, I'm moving to Hollywood the second I graduate. I'm going to be an actress. And that's what I did. I graduated and drove my VW Rabbit and found my way.
So how did you transition from actor to filmmaker then?
Well, acting was something that you really couldn't control. And when I did work as an actor, I always cared more about the filmmaking process. When I would read a script, I would go in, this didn't serve me very well, by the way, but I would tell the person that I was auditioning for, especially when I would get to directors and producers, what I didn't think was working. Definitely not advisable. But and when I would look at my role, I would look at the film after and not my part. And I was, always reading biographies on Kubrick. And I started going to film school in 2001. And I, read all the Sid Field books. And my friend worked at Paramount, and I would just copy scripts. And, when I would work on sets, I would hang out with crew people, not the actors. So it was a very natural transition because I was simultaneously kind of doing both, but not giving up something that I hadn't quite succeeded at with acting. But once I made the leap, it was like kind of putting on a glove, it was just such a natural fit. And I would never look back. Like I don't miss anything about being an actor. I like being able to give actors opportunities. And, I love everything about, constructing a shot and putting together, a project, a film, a story that you believe in, that inspires you. So
you actually come up with the stories yourself to do, right? People don't submit stories to you and then you make it.
No, I mean, some things I've kind of fallen into, like my last film, When the Bow Breaks, was about postpartum depression and psychosis. And it was executive produced by Brooke Shields, and she narrated it as well. That I had met somebody, this woman, Tanya Newbold, I was interviewing for another documentary, and she had told me she had really bad postpartum depression. I didn't know anything about it. I had a 2-month-old baby at the time, but didn't suffer from it. And that was kind of a calling based on the fact that when I started to do the research, I realized like it was such a huge epidemic, like this huge public health issue. I mean, babies are dying, suicide, the tragedies of psychosis, and it can happen to anyone. So I kind of fell into that. And then, with Erik's story, I feel like I know a lot of people that have really interesting or stories that I just think are really important to tell. And a lot of projects, because I develop a lot of things, both as narratives and documentaries. And then there's certain films that just find me. I'm working on optioning a Holocaust book, which is a smaller story in the Holocaust. And like a friend brought it to me, but I was so deeply affected and moved and hysterically crying, but also really inspired by what this man made of his life. So I think it's a variety of things. And then there's things that I've written. And then I just directed a feature for Blanc Bean Productions, which is a narrative thriller, which I got hired to direct, which was so much fun to do as well. Because documentaries are they're great, but they're a real big responsibility. They can be at times very, very difficult to do.
Why would it be more difficult to do a documentary than a narrative?
Because you're dealing with real people, and you're dealing with, I have such integrity to my subjects, but you're also making people relive their pain. And I feel I'm doing it for the right reason. And I feel they believe, they know that as well. But, with When the Bow Breaks, I'm having women recount killing their children. Like that weighs very heavy. It's hard to sleep at night. And, you watch somebody, I'll never forget when we got to the Firestone tire plant and, recreating the torture scene, the narrative that's in the film, and for me, the filmmaker aspect is excited that it's all coming together and this is the perfect location. And I've spent hours putting together the shot list, and, a production designer just nailed it with how the set looked. And, Erik walked on and said, like, this is exactly what it looked like. And because he was on set as a stunt coordinator, but also as an advisor to Mark, who played him, and when he's giving him advice about what he's feeling at that moment, I can't forget that this is my friend, that this really happened to. So it, all for the rewarding and right reasons, but it definitely is, it's definitely difficult with a narrative. You've got a script, you're hiring actors, and you're composing shots, and you're directing actors, and it's on a simple timeline. So I think it's a lot easier to do.
Is there any market for a happy documentary? Because most documentaries seem to always be about a tragic story with somebody.
I mean, whenever I see one that's happy, I'm so thankful, because there's, none offhand come to mind. It's not usually the ones that I'm drawn to.
I don't think I remember too many happy documentaries, unless it's just about, a band or, something like that. But most of the ones that people really want to see are always the horrible story, murders or whatever it was. It just seems kind of odd to me that we wouldn't prefer happy documentaries, but I guess not.
I think it's also because, the stories that are being told in documentary format, they're usually to, a lot of them are to educate, inspire, kind of bring awareness to a certain topic, and they tend to be a lot heavier. I mean, we're developing one right now, which is on, guns in America, and doing the research on that, I can't even count how many times I broke down. I had, someone who was co-producing with me in my office here, and the stories and what we were reading about the numbers and mass shootings, and it was extremely difficult even just to research.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be interesting. Are you working on that now?
It's one of the things that I'm developing. I have a lot of different films, narrative and documentary at different stages.
Oh, I see. Okay. What's the next one that you're going to be putting out? Do you know yet?
I don't. Well, I'm finishing up the Thriller Killer Weekend, and then I have a script that I wrote that's untitled, but it's a Hollywood story, and it's drug running and mafia and gambling, and it's a narrative. So I think I'd like to do that next. That's what I'm focusing on. And then also we have Erik's story as a feature called The Price of Pride, which more focuses on the prison life. And it's, I look at it as like a Midnight Express meets Shawshank Redemption, except he's innocent, because there's so many more things that happened in the prison, and, the way he made a life for himself in there. Just so many countless stories that we couldn't include in the film. So that's something that we put together. We have a finished script, and we're just starting to send that out.
You said that there was always some kind of a message that you wanted to convey with the film. What message do you want to convey from 3 Years in Pakistan?
One thing Eric always says to me whenever I complain about anything or have a tough day, filmmaking isn't as glamorous as it always seems. He always just says it could always be worse. And, knowing and seeing what he went through, it can always be worse. And I think that the message is, that you really can overcome anything.
If he could make it out from that, the rest of life should be a piece of cake, huh?
Yeah, and to appreciate what we have. I think we take the simplest things, I know I do, for granted, and the effects that people have, how people are affected by the end monologue when he talks about things like ice water and a bed and blankets. People are very moved by that, as I was and as everybody on set was when he was saying it, that we really don't think about the simple things that we have to be thankful for.
The film is called 3 Years in Pakistan. It is out now, yeah?
Yes, it's out. It's on VOD everywhere, so you can get it on iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, anywhere where you can stream VOD, it's available.
Okay.
And go to our Facebook page as well, which is 3 Years in Pakistan, the Erik Audé Story, and you can always get updates or, message us or ask questions or share anything you want there as well.
Super. Jamie Lynn, thanks so much. We got to wrap this up. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
It was great talking to you. Take care.
You too. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, here is One and One and One, followed by Come On and Hold On by Robert Marino.
You already knew, so come on baby, one and one's not two. Oh, 3 is a crowd. I was the bright shining star in your sky, but now I find you keep a pretty thing on the side. Did you really think that my love was so blind? Well, you had better keep this love me more. Ooh, wanted once, not two. Yeah, added up, not this. I thought you already knew. You best believe it. Wanted once, not two. Yeah, added up now. This I thought you already knew. Ooh, wanted once, not two. I thought you knew it. This I thought you already knew. I think you blew it. Wanted once, not two. Ooh, this I thought you already knew. Yeah. Wanted once, not two. I thought you knew it. This I thought you already knew. I think you blew it. Wanted once, not two. Three is a crime. This I thought you already knew. Wanted once, not two. This I thought you already knew. Wanted once, not two. This I thought you already knew. Wanted once, not two. This I thought you already. I thought you already knew it. Wanted once, not two. This I thought you already knew. I could see in his eyes he was not far from innocence, but how he looked right through my game of cool ambivalence got me to wondering if things were bound to be warming up fast. Then he touched my hand and said, "Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Come on now, baby. Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Hold on now, baby. Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Come on now, hold on. Everything's gonna be alright. I've been taking my time, don't need to play the one night stand. Yeah, I don't wanna be pulled in way too fast or too deep again. But I find myself over my head and holding my breath when he touches my hand and says, "Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Come on now, baby. Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Hold on now, baby. Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Come on now, hold on. Everything's gonna be Well, I'm feeling the heat, this fever just ain't gonna break. Gonna hang on for now, guess I will take a leap of faith. Love at first sight is never ever laissez-faire affair. Oh, how he touches my hand and says, "Come on and hold on, sweet baby. Come on, sweet baby. Come on and hold on, sweet baby.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Erik Audé and Jamie Lynn Lippman. Thank you guys for being on the show. Really appreciated talking to you and hearing about Erik Audé's story. Also, thank you to Robert Marino for his wonderful music and his generous contribution to our GoFundMe. This is Douglas Coleman saying, I'll see ya